Yes, everyone, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. And in this video, we are going to be talking about Jed Spence, especially after his brilliant performance against Hearts in that second half. Dave, I know you've had a soft spot for Jed Spence in the past. You are knowledgeable of his kind of upbringing, his challenging career. He's had to work hard for a lot of things, and he's had a tough time at Tottenham Hotspur. And after that brilliant performance in the second half, do you think he deserves a second chance with Spurs? And with his performance against Hearts, do you actually think he's in fact pushing for that second chance? Is he motivated? Is he a different player now?
Look, I think it's hard to sit here and say he deserves a second chance off 145 minutes, right? But I think what we've seen in that 45 minutes is there something that we can actually work with here? Have we got it all wrong on Jed Spence? Let's not forget that Jed Spence was brought in here by Paratici and mainly Daniel Levy. And Conte wanted a more experienced option or a different option altogether. So Jed Spence was used as a power struggle between the manager and the owner. And I actually feel sorry for him in a way because it's been painted out, or not being painted out, let's be fair. It's been sort of the last impression we had of Jed Spence is that his attitude was poor, poor timekeeping, turning up late for meetings and stuff like that. And we were all, because we were so frustrated with the club and so frustrated with a lot of the players that we had around at the time, and some of the same shit was keep happening. It wasn't just him with bad attitudes, it was seemed to be rife throughout the club. We all sort of very quickly at the time said, look, just get rid. We don't need this problem. We want someone that wants to be here. But now that we have a bit more of a settled environment, and when I look back on the situation, Jack, if I'm a young guy and I've got my dream move to the Premier League and I've worked my whole childhood and I've sacrificed being a child, doing what all my friends are doing to make this dream happen, and it turns to reality, and I'm on an upward trajectory, I'm in the England underage squad, I'm not too far away from the senior team if I can make this move work. And I'm in there, I'm breaking my bollocks in training every single day, and no matter what I do, I'm never going to get a minute of action, I'm never going to get a fair shake because the manager doesn't like me, because it's not the signing that he wanted, and he's using me to make an example to the board. So there's nothing he could do in that situation to get on the football pitch. And if I'm him, being a young lad, my head's going to turn, especially if I don't have the right people around me. Now, I can't speak for his camp, but my head is going to turn. I'm going to be pissed off. I'm going to start turning up to things late. I'm going to show disinterest, because if the manager has no interest of using me to use me as a pawn, for a game with the owner, then I'm just going to show the exact same attitude. So I can understand, actually reflecting on things, why he had the approach or why he had the attitude he's had. Since then, he's been loaned out, and I'm hoping maybe with a bit of maturity, being in a country abroad where, you have to grow up a little bit, you have to mature, yourself, Jack, when you went to Germany and stuff like that, you don't have mommy and daddy that you can rely on. It's a bit different, you have to mature and stuff like that very, very quickly. Hopefully, I think that's maybe resonated with him and come back and is maybe going to approach this a little bit differently with Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou. Maybe had a head turn. And if he has, and he keeps putting in them performances over the next couple of games of preseason or however long he's going to be here, I don't see why we shouldn't give him a second opportunity as a club, as a fan base, because it could be that backup to Porro that we need, where we don't have to go into the market and we can really use that money to really heavily invest in the forward areas. Now, of course, that's all wishful thinking. Are the club going to do it? But that would be my reason behind keeping him here, Jack, because I think he showed a lot in the second half that he can bring something different to Pedro Porro. But I'll let you have your input, and then we'll move on to maybe what he can bring.
The key word that you use there is pawn, right? No one wants to be used as a pawn in any situation, especially when it really doesn't have much to do with you. You don't really have much control or say in the situation, and it can be often unexpected, right? That you end up being used in this tug of war between two different parties or two different people, right? And it's just unfair on someone as young as he was too, right? I think he's only turning 24 in like the next month or so. And the fact that he was being used as like a pawn as a 22-year-old with his fresh move to the Premier League, it does seem a bit unfair on the guy. And you don't necessarily blame him for not handling it, let's say, in the best of ways, right? It can be a tough task or a tough ask to ask someone to be the more mature person, to be, the better person in it all. And he has had to go through a tough time. And I wonder if there was a wake up call for him when he was being sent out on loan to the likes of Stade Rennes to Genoa and clubs like that. And the fact that even his fee for Genoa is like only going to be around like £8 million or something like that. He must have looked at that and been like, I'm definitely worth much more than that. Why is it that clubs are bargaining over me for 7-8 million pounds? You wonder if he had that sort of wake up call about, maybe I do have to take my career into my own hands. Maybe I do have to sort of rise above these obstacles, rise above these things that have technically made my life a bit harder, made my career a bit harder to take advantage of. And so I actually applaud Jed Spence, if this is the case, that he's pushing for a second chance here, because he's doing it entirely on his own. It's not the club that's pushing him. It's not anyone else that I think is pushing him. Maybe not even Ange Postecoglou. It seems it could be just Jed Spence has just decided to just rise above like I said, these obstacles, these limitations have been put in his way, and has just decided to take his career into his own hands. And by performing well, by playing well, and by maybe perhaps even improving his own attitude towards the whole thing. And if he does that, then he's going to definitely get that second chance at Spurs, or he's going to get that second chance someplace else where a club could really try to take advantage of his assets and what he can bring to the team. So I just actually have to applaud Jed Spence for playing so well in that second half, because he did look like a totally different player. The fact that he's even been brought on the plane to Scotland and has kind of been featuring in videos even recently by the club and everything does suggest to me quite subtly that maybe there is a slight chance that he might be included in the plans this next upcoming season if he can continue to work off of that great performance. Do you agree with me there, that Dave, though, that maybe he is kind of just had a wake up call for himself, that he is just, kind of had a change in attitude, that he's just realized, you know what, as much as this has been unfair on me, I just have to rise above it. I have to be the better person. I have to take the high road and take the career into my own hands. And you have to applaud a kid for that. And then after you answer that question, Dave, if you do think he's going to get a second chance, is he actually good enough to challenge Pedro Porro? That's my other question.
Just on the back of the first question, Jack, I think for me, when you're younger, right, you sort of blame everybody else around you. I think it's only when you get older and you start maybe looking inwards or looking at yourself, could I have handled that situation better, or what is in my control? So, okay, that's out of my control, but when I look back at it, I carried over to Ange Postecoglou. Did he deserve that from me? No. So maybe I'll come back this season with a fresh attitude, start being on time, being more attentive, look more like I care, look more interested, look to affect games in preseason, and try and get myself back into this squad and actually apologise to Ange Postecoglou, maybe explain myself. If that is the case, we're only sort of giving our opinion on it here, but if that is the case, go and have this chat with Ange Postecoglou, clear the air. But look, let's wait and see. This is only our opinion on it at the end of the day. But heading into, can he bring something different to Pedro Porro? I think he can. I think in terms of Pedro Porro, right, he's more easy on the eye. He's more Pirlo-esque. Great crosser of the ball. Great guy to play through balls. Also carries a goal threat. Getting on the end of things. For me, I think Spence is one of them guys, a bit like Destiny Adoji, where sometimes I think Pedro Porro is one that likes the intricate play, plays it, receives it, plays it, receives it. Not a guy that's going to get on the ball and bull his way through with pure pace and power, and that's something I think Jed Spence can give you that's maybe a little bit different, that he does have that ability. We've seen that against Hearts. Now, look, obviously, to caveat that, it's Hearts and probably not, in the whole of the second half, their first team. So we have to take that into account. But he brought that explosiveness, that directiveness, getting in the box when the ball was being crossed in from the other side. Love that, something Pedro Porro does. But also being able to explode with the ball and find that little pass on the edge of the final third, a bit like what Porro does, but in a different fashion, maybe a bit more explosive and a bit more quicker than maybe Porro can do it. So I think he brings something different there. The question is he good enough defensively? And that was one of the biggest questions that was asked about him when we brought him to this football club. What I spoke about there is something that especially me, when I looked into the guy, that I really liked, that I thought we could have used instead of someone like Doherty, a complete different option, someone that is a bit more explosive. So that's what we knew this guy was going to give us. The big question is, has he gotten better defensively? Has he matured defensively? Can he show that? on the football pitch in the time that he's got. Hearts, QPR, not exactly big tests. Is he still going to be around here for a Bayern Munich game? Will he get tested in that game? I think that's where we'll probably find our answer. But Andrew obviously have a good educated guess from what he sees in training. And that's, if he's not kept around, I think that's one of the things that is probably one of the reasons why maybe he's just way off it defensively. And of course, it's hard to tell with the Hearts game because we were so dominant in the half that he played that he wasn't really tested defensively.
No, that's a very fair point. What does he do differently to Porro? I think he has a bit more of that ball carrying threat than probably Porro does. Porro is not nearly as quick as Jed Spence is off of the dribble. And then also, too, I think Jed Spence has a bit more strength, actually, when also trying to take it past his man, because he's quite tall, he's quite big. So when he does take it past you, he's not a guy that I think would be pretty easy to shove off of the ball as well. You also compare him to someone like Emerson, who kind of struggled sometimes to take it past his man. He's a bit flat-footed. I think in possession, Emerson, he kind of would rather just give it to someone else to make that sort of move past their man, whereas Jed Spence is fully capable of taking it past his opponent. So what I like about Jed Spence is he doesn't necessarily have the technical range or technical skill level that Porro does, but he does offer something different in possession when it comes to taking on his man. And also, you think you brought this up in the pre-match buildup or something about he's actually more inclined to make those overlaps than he is actually going to make those kind of inverted type of runs, into midfield, which is just something Ange Postecoglou could think about. If he really wants to be attacking the opposition fullback, someone like Jed Spence is going to cause that team plenty of problems with that pace. And then also that recovery pace. What is important in this system is someone who can track back and be good enough to be able to get forward, but also has the athleticism to be able to track back. Pedro Porro, we actually had kind of some question marks about that because, again, much more of a technically skilled player than he is like an athletic specimen of any kind. But he did surprise us with how good he is defensively at tracking back, being in the right areas. And I think Jed Spence, if he can mimic what Porro was able to do, he might even find it easier because he's just more, just like I said, even more athletic, even more capable of trying to track back and get in the right area. So he could really be helpful and is probably more suited to the role than even Emerson is. Emerson offered that something different because he was slightly better defensively, better in the air, that sort of thing. But when we are in possession, I think Jed Spence is going to be even better than what Emerson was, and also could actually offer something technically different to what Pedro Porro does. So I'm excited to see what Jed Spence can do for the rest of this preseason. I really do hope that he continues to turn some heads and also turns Postecoglou's head. And if he continues to play this way, one of two things is going to happen. He's going to be given a second chance at Spurs, or he's going to be given a second chance someplace else, and he probably would command an even better fee than the 8 million, 7 million that Genoa were trying to bargain for, and he could start his career again with a great new club and see if he can reignite it. But with Jed Spence, Dave, I'm going to say that he does turn some heads. I'm going to make a bold conclusion that there might be a change in attitude there and also just a bit of maturity that's just come through here. And he's taken the career into his own hands. And I'd love to see him be given that second chance at Tottenham Hotspur.
Interesting. Look, for me, it boils down to, three things. And guys, I want you to give us your answers in the comment section below and your thoughts on this. Has there been a change of attitude in terms of, wanting to play football for Tottenham Hotspur and, showing the right attitude behind the scenes? That's one thing. We can only guess. We don't have any inside sources. We're not inside the club. We are purely giving our opinion based off what we've seen on the football pitch. Second of all is, does he suit Ange Postecoglou's system? Yes, going forward, but defensively. So let us know on that. And look, the last thing I would say is, for me, Jack, for the minuscule fee that we're going to get for him, if he puts in these levels of performances, it's something I would look at. I know Tottenham were linked with Festi Ebiseli from Ireland there over the course of last season. Jed Spence is way better on the ball than someone like Festi Ebiseli, and that fee was going to be around 15 to 20 million. So, again, for me, this is something I would be looking at rather than waste money this summer, bringing in a second choice right back when you've also got Archie Gray, if needs be, who can cover there. Use that money further up the field to make us more important. And that's, improve the areas that's actually going to make a difference in the likes of the league table and the cup runs. So, look, I'm rooting for Jedi Spectacular. I like the kid. I like when we first signed him, what I've seen of him. And hopefully he's going to get the chance to deliver now. Hopefully there's been a clear the air talks. There's no more stumbling blocks in his way. He's not being used as a pawn. Jedi Spectacular. Get your head right. Keep putting in these spectacular performances, and you'll get yourself into the squad. Let's go. I'm rooting for
you. Can Ange release the Jedi? Let us know in the comments down below, everybody, please. We'll see you for the next video. Really would love to see you guys for the watch along tomorrow for that QPR game as well, so we could see even more of him and end up seeing if we can make even better conclusions, even bolder conclusions about our wonderful Jedi Spence. But we'll see you next time, everybody. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. Hit that like button for us on the way out, and we'll be seeing ya.